The day started like any other, but no one could have guessed what was about to unfold. The quiet neighborhood where Mike Wolfe's mansion stands had never seen so much activity. Large black SUVs arrived early in the morning. People living nearby watched from behind their curtains as serious-looking agents stepped out, dressed in suits and wearing FBI badges. Something was going on, and it was not just a regular visit. The FBI was here for a reason. Mike Wolfe is known by millions for his hit TV show American Pickers. He travels around the country looking for old items with hidden value. Over the years, he has found rare antiques, lost treasures, and items people forgot even existed. He has an eye for the unusual. But no one ever expected that his own home would become the center of such a mystery. The FBI's presence was not random. They had a lead, something that pointed them toward Mike's mansion. Some said it was a tip-off. Others believed it had to do with something from the past, maybe a case that had gone cold or a secret that had never been told. Whatever it was, the agents were not here to chat or ask questions. They came prepared to search the property. Inside the mansion, everything looked calm. Beautiful wooden floors, vintage furniture, and antique pieces filled the rooms. It was exactly what you'd expect from someone who spends his life collecting. But the FBI wasn't here for the furniture. They were focused on one room in particular. A part of the house that hadn't been touched in years. There was something strange about the floor in that room. At first glance, it looked like regular old wood worn with time, maybe even a little loose in places. But one agent noticed something odd. The planks didn't match the rest of the house. They looked older, different, as if they had been added later to cover something up. With Mike's permission, the agents began to remove the old floor carefully. The wood creaked and groaned as they pulled it up, revealing the dark space beneath. What they found under that floor was enough to make even the most experienced agent freeze for a moment. Their faces turned pale. The room, once quiet, suddenly felt heavy, like the air itself had changed. No one spoke for a few seconds. The agents just stared, trying to understand what they were looking at. Something had been hidden there for a long time. Something no one had seen in years, maybe decades. It wasn't gold or money. It wasn't a weapon. It was something stranger, something that made them feel like they had just stepped into a story that had been locked away, waiting to be found. The mansion, which had always been seen as a collector's paradise, now seemed like a puzzle with missing pieces. Why was something so strange hidden there? Did Mike Wolfe know about it? Or had someone used the house before him to hide something important? These questions filled everyone's minds. But there were no clear answers yet, only mystery. The news didn't take long to spread. Within hours, reporters gathered outside. Helicopters flew overhead. The mansion had become a scene straight out of a movie. Fans of Mike Wolfe were shocked. How could this happen at his home? What had the FBI found that made them react so strongly? What made the situation even more interesting was Mike Wolfe's own reaction. He seemed just as surprised as everyone else. He answered questions, cooperated fully, and even helped agents understand the layout of the house. He said he had no idea there was anything hidden under the floor. And people believed him. After all, he spent years uncovering secrets, not hiding them. Still, the curiosity remained. Why did the FBI come now? Who gave them the tip? And what exactly had they found? The public wanted answers. But the FBI was careful with what they shared. They said it was part of an ongoing investigation that only made people more curious. Everyone had a theory. Some thought it was a lost piece of history. Others believed it had something to do with a crime from long ago. The idea that something could stay hidden for so long, right under someone's feet, was both scary and fascinating. It made people think about their own homes. What if they had secrets under their floors too? It showed how even in a house full of old items, something truly important could still go unnoticed. As the day went on, more pieces of the floor were removed. The agents kept working, collecting evidence, taking pictures, and sealing items in bags. The mansion, once just a beautiful home, had become a place full of questions. And the biggest question of all was, what happens next? People on social media shared theories and ideas. Some posted old photos of the house, trying to spot clues. Others defended Mike Wolfe, saying he was honest and would never hide anything shady. But no one could deny the truth. Something real had been discovered. And the FBI doesn't show up for nothing. By nightfall, the area was roped off. Lights shone through the mansion windows. The investigation was still going. But one thing was clear. This story was just beginning. And everyone wanted to know how it would end. Secrets are strange things. Some are small and personal. Others are so big that they can change everything. The secrets found inside Mike Wolfe's mansion that day were not small. They were powerful. They were shocking, and they raised more questions than answers. When the FBI started pulling up the old wooden floor, they expected to find something. But no one could have guessed what it would be. As the first few boards came off, the agents noticed a layer of dust. It was clear that the space underneath had not been touched for many, many years. But that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was what was hidden under that dust. It was a box, not a new one. It looked old, maybe from the early 1900s. The wood was dark and worn, and the metal hinges had rust on them. The box was sealed tight, but not locked. One agent slowly opened it. Inside there were old papers, photos, and something wrapped in a soft cloth. Everyone leaned in closer to see what it was. And then came the moment no one expected. Inside the cloth was a book. Not just any book, it looked like a journal. The cover was leather cracked with age. The pages inside were yellow and smelled like something from a long time ago. But it was the writing that shocked everyone. It wasn't written by Mike Wolfe. It was written by someone else. Someone who had lived in the house many years ago. Someone whose story had been lost in time. The journal spoke of hidden items, not just antiques or collectibles, but things with strange value. Things taken from different places. Some possibly stolen. Some never returned to their rightful owners. The writer talked about hiding these things in safe spots, away from the eyes of the law, and this floor. It was one of those hiding places. That's when things took a darker turn. The journal had names. Names of people. Some of them were known collectors. Some were completely unknown. But one thing was clear. This was not just a collector's notebook. It was something more, something that pointed to a web of secrets that had been buried for a very long time. The FBI agents looked through the photos that were in the box. They were black and white, clearly very old. Some showed rare items. Old coins, statues, even weapons. But others were more disturbing. One photo showed a small group of people standing near a barn, holding what looked like a sealed crate. On the back of the photo was a date and a short note. "Do not let this out." What was in that crate? And where was it now? The more the agents read, the more the mystery grew. This wasn't just about one house. It wasn't just about Mike Wolfe. It was about something bigger, something that may have started long before he even bought the place. Maybe he had no idea. Or maybe he had found hints before but never guessed the full truth. The FBI had to act fast. They sealed the journal, photos, and all documents in evidence bags. Everything was handled with gloves. This was no longer just a floor search. This had become an investigation that could possibly connect to other people, other places, even other crimes. As news of the journal and photos started to leak, the public reaction was wild. People online started sharing theories. Was this part of a smuggling ring? Was someone using the mansion as a secret base long ago? Or was it something even stranger? Maybe a hidden history no one had ever talked about. One theory that started to spread was that Mike Wolfe's mansion used to belong to someone who was part of an underground group, people who collected not just rare items but dangerous ones. Items with stories too dark to tell. Items that were better kept hidden. All of this made the phrase "shocking secrets" feel very real. It wasn't just about what was found. It was about what those things meant. Each paper, each photo, each word in that journal added a new layer to the mystery. People couldn't stop thinking about it. It became the topic of late-night shows, podcasts, and social media debates. But through all of this, Mike Wolfe stayed calm. He gave a short statement saying he had no knowledge of anything hidden beneath the floors. He also said he was fully helping the authorities and wanted the truth to come out, just like everyone else. That made people trust him even more. He had built a career on finding lost things, on telling stories of forgotten people. Maybe now, he was part of a story that needed to be told. Still, the secrets were just beginning to unfold. The journal hinted at more hiding places. It spoke of another floor, another box, another mystery. Was it also in the house? Or was it somewhere else? No one knew for sure. But the idea that more secrets could be waiting kept everyone guessing. The mansion that once looked like a simple collector's dream was now a map to the unknown. A place where the past had not been erased. It had just been buried. And the FBI, they weren't done yet. They were only on the first few pages of something much bigger. They knew that whatever had been hidden here was not random. It had purpose. It had a story. And now it was time to uncover it, one secret at a time. Mike Wolfe's mansion had always been a place full of charm and mystery. From the outside it looked like a dream home, large and peaceful, surrounded by trees and set far from the noise of busy roads. People imagined it to be filled with beautiful old furniture, antique treasures, and rare finds from across America, and they were not wrong. But what no one knew was that this house also had secrets, deep ones that had stayed hidden for many years. The house itself was not just a home, it was a reflection of Mike Wolfe's personality and his life's work. Being the face of American pickers, he had spent years traveling across the country, stepping into barns, sheds and old stores, finding lost treasures that told amazing stories. His home was like a museum, every corner holding something special, something with a past. People close to him always said his house had a soul, like it could whisper stories if you listened closely. But when the FBI stepped inside, they were not looking for decoration or history. They were searching for something hidden, and they believed it was right there inside Mike Wolfe's own walls, floors, or maybe even behind old furniture. The agents moved carefully. Every room looked unique. Some had shelves lined with old radios, signs and gas pumps from forgotten times. Others had glass cases filled with coins, stamps and tiny tools. Everything was in perfect condition, cleaned and labeled. It looked like a place built with love. But the deeper they went inside, the more curious they became. There was one room, located at the far end of the house, that felt different. It was quieter than the rest. The light was dimmer, the floor was covered in thick wooden planks that didn't match the modern parts of the house. This room looked untouched, like it had been left the way it was found. One of the agents paused, something about it felt off. The floorboards creaked when walked upon. They sounded hollow, that's when they decided to look beneath it. But even before the floor was lifted, people began to ask, why would anything be hidden here? Why in this room? Was there something special about this part of the house? Neighbors later said that Mike rarely spoke about that room. He once mentioned it came with the house, and that he hadn't changed much in it. He thought it added character. Now it seemed that maybe he had unknowingly left a piece of history untouched. Or maybe fate had kept that room the same, waiting for someone to discover its truth. As the floor was removed and the hidden box was found, the focus shifted from the house as a home to the house as a mystery. What else could be in there? If one journal and a few photos were found, what about the rest of the mansion? Was this room the only one hiding something, or were there other hidden compartments, behind walls, under stairs, or inside false cabinets? The mansion suddenly became like a living puzzle. People wanted to see every inch of it. Reporters and fans searched for old pictures and videos, trying to spot anything unusual. A bump in the wall, an extra panel in the ceiling, a cabinet that didn't match the rest. Everyone had a theory. Some even said that the house itself might have been designed to hide things. It wasn't just the inside of the house that caught attention. The basement, garage, attic, all were places the agents looked into. Each one had its own feel, its own smell, its own sense of time. Some parts of the house still had wallpaper from the 1960s. Others had thick beams and stone walls that looked over 100 years old. This house had lived through many chapters, and now it was telling one more. People who had visited Mike before said he was always proud of his house. He would walk them through each room, sharing stories behind his finds. But that back room, the one with the strange floor, was rarely mentioned. Maybe he thought it had nothing special, or maybe deep down, he felt there was something about it he couldn't explain. The FBI didn't find only one box under the floor. There were signs that more could be buried deeper. They brought in special tools to scan the floors and walls. The agents were serious. They treated every space in the house with care. This was no longer just a collector's home. It was part of something larger, a possible link to a forgotten past, maybe even a piece of hidden history. As days passed, people began to look at the mansion differently. What once seemed like a beautiful house filled with antiques now seemed like a gateway to a story that was just beginning. A house where things were not always what they appeared to be. Where a floor was not just a floor. Where a wall might hide more than bricks. It made people think, how many homes like this exist across the country? Homes with secrets waiting to be found. Mike Wolfe said in a short interview that he had always believed in the power of old things. That they speak in silence, and that they carry stories inside them. Maybe now, his own home was doing just that, finally speaking, after years of staying quiet. But what would it say next? What other secrets were still hidden? And how long had they been waiting to come out? The mansion was still full of mystery. And while the agents worked, and the world watched, one thing was clear: This was not just a search inside a house. This was a journey into a forgotten story. One that had stayed locked for far too long. There are moments that change everything. Small actions that open the door to big discoveries. In this case, it was something as simple as removing an old wooden floor. No one thought it would lead to such a shocking story. But when that floor came up, it didn't just reveal what was underneath. It changed how people looked at the entire house, and maybe even the man who lived there. The room where it all happened looked normal at first. The wood was dark and scratched from age. Dust had settled in the corners. It was the kind of room you might walk past without a second thought. But the FBI agents noticed something strange about the way the floor sounded. When they walked across it, there was a slight echo, like the floor was hollow. That was enough for them to look closer. Carefully they began to lift the boards. One by one, each piece came up slowly, and with every inch the tension in the room grew. What were they expecting to find? Maybe just an old storage space. But what they actually found was far more mysterious. Under the floor, there was a space that looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. Dust covered everything. The air was still and dry, like time had stopped. In the center of that space was a wooden box, dark and heavy. It looked like it had been hidden for a reason. The agents opened it slowly, not knowing what to expect. Inside they found the journal, the photos, and the old documents that pointed to secrets nobody had ever heard of. But the most curious thing wasn't just what was in the box. It was the way the space was built. The area under the floor was clearly designed for hiding. The wood above it had been nailed in a special way to make it look old and natural. Whoever hid the box had taken great care to make sure it would not be discovered easily. This raised a new question. Who built this hiding place? Was it someone from the past, long before Mike Wolfe lived there? Or was it added later, by someone who wanted to keep a part of history buried? The FBI began to scan the rest of the floor, and they found something even more surprising. There wasn't just one space under the floor. There were several. Some were empty, others filled with dust and broken pieces of wood. But in one of them, hidden deeper under a loose plank, was another small box. This one was metal, rusted but still strong. Inside they found old coins, a faded map, and a sealed envelope. The envelope had no name on it. Just a date, written in old handwriting. When the agents opened it, they found a letter. The writing was careful, like someone took their time. The words were hard to read, but the message was clear. It spoke about things that were taken, things that didn't belong to the person who had them. It talked about regret, and about keeping history hidden, so that it wouldn't hurt anyone. The letter didn't say who wrote it, but it was signed with just one letter. Now the mystery had grown even bigger. Who was Jay, and what exactly had they hidden here? It wasn't just about money or rare items anymore. It was about a decision someone made, a choice to keep something secret, even if it meant hiding it forever. People started to wonder if Mike Wolfe had ever seen this part of the floor before. Maybe he had walked over it 100 times without knowing. Maybe he had felt something strange about the room, but didn't think much of it. Or maybe he had his own questions, ones he never spoke out loud. The FBI continued to search the house, but that floor, those few boards that had been lifted, had already revealed more than anyone could have imagined. It was like the house had opened its mouth and started telling a story that had been locked away for too long. And the story wasn't over yet. Experts were brought in to study the handwriting, the map, the letter, and the coins. They said some of the coins were from a time when the US was still building its identity. The map showed locations that no longer existed. Towns that had changed names or disappeared completely. And the journal, it held names of people no one had heard of before, but whose lives might now become part of something much bigger. Social media exploded with questions. People created pages, groups, and even videos trying to solve the mystery. Some believed the items belonged to a secret society. Others said it was part of a lost government project. There were even a few who thought it had something to do with treasure that had been hidden during a war. But through all the theories, one thing remained the same. This all started with an old floor. Sometimes we think the past is behind us, that it's buried and forgotten. But every once in a while, it comes back, hidden in places we least expect. Like under a few wooden boards in a quiet room. Mike Wolfe's mansion was now a place of wonder and curiosity. What else could be hidden there? And if this much was found under one part of the floor, who knows what might be behind the walls? or under the stairs, or in the attic. The house had become more than just a home. It had become a mystery. And the people who were part of it, Mike Wolfe, the agents, the experts, were now characters in a real-life story that no one saw coming. And yet, as the sun went down on that strange day, and the house stood quietly once again, there was a feeling that something even bigger was still waiting to be found. The room was silent, but the air felt heavy. Everyone could feel that something important was about to happen. The agents had already pulled up several parts of the old floor. They had found one wooden box, one metal box, and many questions. But now they were opening a section of the floor that felt different. It was deeper than the rest. The wood above it was thicker, stronger, and harder to remove. It was clear that this part had been hidden with more care than anything else. As they lifted the last plank, the light from above slowly touched something underneath. It wasn't a box this time, it looked more like a small chest. It was made of wood and metal, and it had strange markings carved into the top. The chest was covered in dust, but it gave off a strange feeling like it didn't belong there. Like it was out of place. The agents looked at each other. One of them slowly bent down and reached for the chest. His hands were shaking slightly, not because of fear but because of the unknown. As he opened the chest, everyone leaned closer, waiting to see what was inside. And then it happened. The lid creaked as it opened. The moment the inside of the chest was visible, the entire room went quiet. The agents stared for a moment, then suddenly stepped back. One of them covered his mouth. Another whispered something under his breath. Their faces had changed. They looked pale, almost frozen. Inside the chest, wrapped carefully in layers of cloth, were several small items. At first they looked like simple objects, pieces of jewelry. Maybe. But as the cloth was pulled back, it became clear these were not normal things. One item looked like an old locket, but when opened it had something strange inside. Not a picture, but a tiny drawing of symbols no one could recognize. Another item was a small book, no bigger than a hand. It had no title, just pages filled with drawings and what looked like strange writing in a language no one could read. The scariest part was a tiny statue, carved from dark stone. It had the shape of a person, but the face was twisted, almost in pain. Its eyes were sharp, and even though it was small, it gave everyone a chill. The statue was cold to the touch, colder than anything else in the room. The agents didn't speak for a few moments. It was as if they were trying to understand what they were looking at. These were not normal antiques. These things had a strange, almost haunting energy. One of the agents called in a special team to examine the objects. They were not sure if the items were dangerous, but they knew they were unlike anything they had found before. The special team arrived later that day. They were trained to deal with old, rare, and unusual items. When they saw the contents of the chest, even they were surprised. One of them, a woman with years of experience studying ancient symbols, stared at the book for a long time. Then she said something that made everyone nervous. She said the writing in the book was similar to a language used by secret groups in the past. Groups that believed in strange powers, hidden knowledge, and dark rituals. She couldn't say for sure where the items came from, but she believed they were not made for beauty or decoration. They were made for something else. Something darker. Now the mystery had taken a turn no one expected. This was no longer just about a hidden journal or an old letter. It was about objects that could hold a deeper, more secret meaning. Maybe someone in the past had collected these things for a reason. Maybe they were part of something much bigger than a personal collection. As the team continued to study the chest and its contents, more strange details came forward. The book, though old, had one page that seemed newer than the others. It was dated just 30 years ago and had a name written on it. But the name didn't match anyone who had ever lived in the house. So who added that page? And why? The statue was also strange. One expert said it looked similar to objects found in hidden temples around the world. But how did something like that end up in a house in America? And who would go through the trouble of hiding it under the floor? The questions kept growing, and the answers were few. But one thing was sure: whatever was inside that chest had shocked the agents for a reason. It wasn't just old or rare, it was something they didn't expect to see. Something that made them feel uneasy, even scared. News of the discovery spread fast. People online began sharing pictures, rumors, and theories. Some said the chest was part of an old cult. Others believed it was connected to lost civilizations. There were even stories saying the statue was cursed, that anyone who touched it would suffer bad luck or worse. While most of these stories were probably made up, the strange feeling in the room couldn't be denied. Mike Wolfe gave another short statement. He said he had no idea anything like that was hidden in his home. He also said he had never seen those items before. He looked calm, but some people noticed he was choosing his words very carefully. Maybe he was just being cautious. Or maybe he knew more than he was saying. No one knew for sure what the full truth was. But one thing had become very clear. The mansion that once looked like a peaceful home was now something else. It was a place full of mysteries, secrets, and items that could not be easily explained. And all of it had started with a simple floor. A few wooden boards that had covered something strange for decades. Now that chest was open, and its contents had changed everything. The agents who saw it first would never forget the feeling they had. The pale look on their faces said it all. Whatever was inside that chest, it was not meant to be found. But now it was. After the strange chest was found under the old floor, everything changed. The FBI had already uncovered strange items, secret letters, and even symbols that no one could explain. But now people had started asking a new question. What did Mike Wolfe really know about all this? Was he just the owner of a mysterious house? Or was he hiding something? At first Mike looked surprised, just like everyone else. He gave short answers, stayed calm, and said he had no idea what was under the floor. But as the news spread and experts began to dig deeper, more questions about his past started to appear. People started looking at Mike's old interviews and public statements. They began to notice little things. Stories that didn't match, dates that seemed off, and places he said he visited that couldn't be confirmed. One video clip from years ago showed him talking about an old trip to Europe where he claimed to have seen things that the world wasn't ready for. At the time, no one thought much of it. Now people were watching that clip again and wondering what he really meant. Reporters began talking to people who knew Mike from before he became famous. Some of them said he was always interested in old rare items. Others said he talked about hidden history and things the public was never told. One old friend even said Mike believed that some antiques had energy in them and that they could carry secrets. This made people wonder. Was Mike collecting things because they were valuable, or because they were connected to something deeper?
Oh.
Did he buy the mansion because it was beautiful, or because he knew something was hidden there? The FBI didn't give clear answers, but they didn't say Mike was innocent either. They simply said the investigation was still open and that they were looking into all possibilities. One day a reporter shared a photo online. It showed Mike standing in front of a very old building in another country. Behind him on the wall was a symbol, almost the same symbol that was found inside the little book in the hidden chest. The photo was from over 15 years ago. People began to say it couldn't be just a coincidence. More strange details came out. A handwritten note was found inside one of Mike's storage units. It had a list of locations with numbers beside them. Some of those places matched with the old map found under the floor. No one could explain why Mike had that list or what the numbers meant. Some believed Mike had been searching for something for a long time, not just antiques but pieces of something bigger. Maybe a story, maybe a secret, maybe something lost in time. Others believed he didn't know anything at all and was just caught in the middle of something from the past. People online were divided. Some said Mike should be trusted. They believed he was just a collector who got lucky, or unlucky, when the floor was removed. Others thought he was much more than that. They believed he had been following a hidden path for years, quietly collecting clues and old items that connected to a deeper mystery. One thing everyone agreed on was that Mike's life would never be the same. His fans, who once saw him as just a friendly guy who loved history, were now asking tough questions. Even the show he was once known for was being looked at differently. People were watching old episodes, trying to find hints, moments where Mike may have slipped up or said too much. Mike stopped talking to the media. He stayed inside his home for days, then quietly left town. No one knew where he went. Some said he had gone to meet someone who might have answers. Others believed he had left because he was scared of what might come next. But the mansion still stood, quiet, old, and now watched closely by agents, reporters, and the public. The rooms that once held simple furniture now held secrets. The floor that once creaked under footsteps had now become the center of a storm. And at the center of it all was Mike Wolfe. The mystery wasn't just about what was hidden under the floor anymore. It was now about the man who lived above it. Did he build that space? Did he know what was down there all along? Or was he just one more person in a story that started long before he ever bought the house? New information kept coming in. A former worker who helped with repairs in the mansion years ago said Mike had once asked him not to touch the floors in that room. At the time it seemed normal. Maybe Mike just liked the old wood. But now it felt like a warning. Like he knew something was there. A letter found in a different part of the house was also being studied. It was hidden behind a mirror in the hallway. It mentioned someone named Jay, the same initial found in the letter from the chest. The handwriting didn't match Mike's, but it was recent. And the words in the letter were clear. It said, "The truth is not ready to come out. If you found this, stop digging." But it was too late. The digging had already begun. The floor had been removed. The boxes had been opened. The secrets were no longer secrets. The world outside Mike Wolfe's mansion had changed. What was once a quiet, old house now had lights flashing outside it every night. Reporters were parked in vans. Agents were going in and out. Locals were talking, and the questions about Mike weren't stopping. But there was one thing no one had noticed yet. Something even the FBI hadn't talked about. When they had found the chest and other items under the floor, there was one small object that hadn't been opened. It was a wooden tube, sealed shut at both ends, and it was taken to a secure location without much attention. Everyone was too focused on the strange statue, the dark book, and the weird letters. But now the attention was slowly shifting to that wooden tube. It was simple in shape but carved with thin lines, almost like vines or roots wrapping around it. When one of the agents finally opened it, what came out was something totally unexpected. A rolled-up piece of very old paper, almost falling apart, but still readable. It wasn't a map. It wasn't a letter. It was something in between. A diagram of the mansion, but different. It showed the house as it looked now, but also marked parts of it that didn't exist, or weren't known. One of the rooms drawn on the paper wasn't anywhere on the current floor plans. In fact, it looked like a room below the house, deeper than the basement. The paper had small symbols pointing to it. The FBI didn't say much publicly, but they immediately returned to the house. And they didn't go to the living room. They went straight to the basement. What happened next wasn't seen by the public. No videos were leaked. No agents gave interviews. But the neighbors said strange sounds came from the house that night. Sounds like metal grinding, like walls being broken, and then complete silence. The next morning, the FBI gave a short statement. They said they had found a hidden area below the basement, and that it had been completely sealed for many years. They didn't share what was inside. They said it was under analysis. But their faces said more than their words. The agents looked tired, pale, and unsure. Speculations grew even faster now. People online began saying the mansion was built on something much older. Some believed there was a reason Mike Wolfe bought that specific house. Maybe someone told him about the hidden place. Maybe he was searching for it for years. Old photos of the land were shared. It turned out the mansion was built in an area where many years ago, a group of people had disappeared without explanation. No one had ever connected that story to the house. Until now. The land had been quiet for decades. But now, with what was found under the house, people started connecting everything like pieces of a giant puzzle. Meanwhile, Mike was still missing. He hadn't returned home, hadn't made a new statement, and his phone was off. Some said he was hiding. Others believed he had gone to meet someone who might know what was really going on. Then something very strange happened. A package arrived at a small news station nearby. It had no return address. Inside was a small tape recorder. When the reporter played it, a voice started speaking. It was Mike's voice. But it didn't sound like the Mike people knew. His voice was low, serious, and slow. He said he had left because he felt unsafe. He said the things found under the floor were not just old. They were part of something that should have stayed hidden. He said he had started finding clues many years ago, and that he believed there was a reason the house came into his life. He didn't say exactly what he was looking for, but he said the deeper he went, the more dangerous it became. He ended the tape with a warning. He said, "If you go deeper, don't go alone. And if you find the last piece, don't open it. Some doors are not meant to open." That sentence sent chills through everyone who heard it. What was the last piece? Was it already found? Or was it still somewhere inside the house? The FBI gave no comments about the tape, but many believed they knew more than they were saying. After that, they blocked off the basement completely. No one was allowed near it. Not even reporters. Then a rumor spread online that one of the agents had left the force after entering the hidden room. Someone claimed the agent had been changed by what they saw. They wouldn't speak. They wouldn't sleep. They just sat in silence, staring ahead. Of course, no one could prove if that was true, but it added fuel to the mystery. Some people even started coming to the house at night, hoping to see something for themselves. They stood behind fences, stared at the windows, whispered to each other about the secrets inside. Some believed the mansion was cursed now. Others believed it was protecting something. Maybe both. As the story continued to grow, one thing became more clear. This was no longer just about a man, or a house, or a few old items. This was about something much bigger, something that was never meant to be found. And Mike Wolfe, whether by accident or design, had found it.